Okay.
All right, guys, so let's talk about strength training, my favorite subject. Me, as well as my husband Rob and our staff, we've got some staff members, actually got a lot of members here. I could throw a rock and hit one of our members. We think that strength training is one of the most powerful tools that we have for anti-aging. And, I think a lot of people, actually that's why I posed this question, what if the best anti-aging drug wasn't a drug at all? And I think a lot of people hesitate to strength train for one of two reasons, or maybe both. One is they're confused. Their doctor told them to strength train, or they read an article, but they don't know what it looks like, where to start. They might join a gym and walk around and see all these machines and not know what the hell's going on. Or they're intimidated. And we hear that every day. It's scary for someone to walk into the gym. They feel like maybe they're going to be judged or looked at. And that gym intimidation is real and it's normal and we hear it all the time. So, just want to put that out there. As I go through these slides, I want you to pay attention to the photos on each one. I've chosen current members of our gym to kind of highlight on each slide, and I haven't chosen anyone that's under the age of 50 years old. So check them out. I hope they inspire you as much as they inspire us on a daily basis.
Right.
I'll say, so first we're going to talk about the problem, kind of like the problem with aging if you're not strength trained.
Go ahead.
So, sobering statistics. Adults lose 3 to 8% of their muscle mass per decade after the age of 30. So by age 80, the average person who hasn't strength trained has lost about half of their muscle mass. So imagine if you've never strength trained, and so at 30 you're kind of weak. By the time you're 80, it can be pretty detrimental to your lifestyle. Strength and power decline even faster. So that's at about 3% loss per year. 1 in 2 women, so 50%, 1 in 4 men, 25%, I'm a mathematician, over the age of 50 will break a bone due to osteoporosis. Unfortunately, I'm sure everybody's here, I know I've known someone who's taken a bad fall and had at least a fracture, if not breaking something. Now, even worse is that after a hip fracture, 20 to 30% of those people don't recover. They actually die within a year. And then many don't regain independence. So they're living with assistance. They have nurses, their spouses helping them. They're not able to live their life like they want to. And then sadly, only 6.8% of US adults aged 50 and up get the recommended amount of strength and aerobic exercise per week. And we live in a really, I'd say, pretty active community. We've got a lot of pickleball players, tennis players, golfers, and that's all awesome. But I think the missing piece in a lot of people's lives is that strength training piece. So hopefully today we're going to convince you why you should be doing that. All right, so the question to ask yourself today is, what good is it to live longer if you can't live well? And that's that notion of lifespan over health span. So lifespan is the number of years you're living, but health span is the number of years you're living them well and you're able to do what you want to do. All right, so here's the prescription. All right, today we're going to focus on exercise, namely strength training, because we're really passionate about it. We're experts in that. I do have to say that more than exercise goes into living well. I'm sure all of you guys have read or seen documentaries on the blue zones, and nutrition is important, and community is really important, sleep, and a lot of things that the docs here talked about. But for the purposes of tonight's presentation, we're going to go into strength training and what that looks like and why. All right, this is a little bit of a repetition from previous slides, but I like to see this visual. In the blue line, you have someone who strength trains. The red line is someone who doesn't. Along the bottom, we have decades starting at age 30 to 90, and then relative strength on the vertical axis. So, it's showing that the untrained individuals, so the red line, you're losing that 3 to 8% of muscle mass per decade after 30. But what's really troubling is after the age of 60, that rate actually accelerates to 15% more. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of different factors that go into it. People tend to be a little more sedentary, they're not working as much, things like that, but this kind of really takes a nosedive. But in that trained individual, so say you, in a perfect world, start strength training in your 30s, you can maintain peak strength of 80 to 90% into your 60s. And then even into your 70s and 80s, 60 to 75% strength. So in a perfect world, we're all starting as we're young, we're maintaining it through your life. But again, it's never too late to start. We've seen a lot of people come in, in their 70s, never had strength trained before, and seen a lot of benefit from that. All right, so the point is, you can do something about it. Strength training is the most effective tool we have to reverse sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, protect bone, we all know how important bone density is, and live optimally. So you're chasing around your grandkids, you're going on vacation, hiking around Italy or mountains or whatever you want to do. In just 2 to 3 days a week of strength training significantly improves muscle mass, insulin sensitivity, and fall risk, even if you're in your 80s. Now, studies are showing 2 to 3 days a week, and that is optimal. But I have to say, we have seen improvements in people in just 1 day a week. And when you're taking on something new like this, and if it's a little bit overwhelming and you don't have a habit, we always say start small. Start with 1 day a week, make it a habit, and then build from there. So if you don't feel that you can commit 2 to 3 days a week, 1 is very enough. All right, so now I'm going to go over some of the benefits of strength training as it relates to aging. So it's a hormone optimizer. It signals short-term increases in testosterone and growth hormone. And as you learned from the previous presentation, it's super important to have enough testosterone. It supports muscle growth and motivation and drive. So as Brett's his graphic with like the man boobs and all the other stuff showed up there, your libido goes down, your mood changes. So testosterone can help improve that. Growth hormone helps repair tissues, and strength training actually lowers cortisol. So cortisol is your stress hormone, and if it's too elevated too often, you have chronic stress, inflammation, and strength training can help balance that. And lastly, it enhances sleep and melatonin rhythms. So everybody needs a good night's sleep. We all know the benefits of sleep. So strength training isn't just building muscle; it's actually sending different signals to optimize your hormones. All right, strength training and insulin resistance. So we learned a lot about this in the last presentation. But what you want to do, you want to think about muscle as glucose sink, and what it means is, what I mean by that is it's a sponge for glucose. So you eat something, glucose enters your bloodstream, and if your muscles are healthy and active, then it uses it for energy right away, or it stores it for energy later. Now, the more lean muscle mass you have, the more places you have to store that, so it's not just spiked. So that means lower blood sugar levels, better insulin sensitivity, and less fat storage. Police talked about kind of gaining weight in your middle. A lot of times that is insulin sensitivity.
The resistance side.
All right, strength training and cognition, so the brain. I highlighted this study in JAMA that looked at older women who strength trained twice a week. And they reported improvements in memory and attention. And it wasn't just kind of, anecdotal or self-reporting. Brain scans actually showed a difference. And strength training is now being advised as a first-line treatment for depression. I've been seeing this, which is awesome. I've had some clients come in and say, my therapist told me I need to get to the gym. And I think that's awesome to get, that doctors are starting to do this now. But this tells us something powerful. It tells us that we're not only building muscle, we're also rewiring the brain. All right, strength training and bone density. Super important. So after the age of 40, the sedentary individual loses about 1% of bone per year. Now, 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but imagine now over 10 years, 20 years, it becomes very significant. That's why we see osteoporosis, why we see fractures. And again, I go back to that, a lot of people here are active and they're doing, they're walking, which is awesome, or they're playing tennis or they're playing pickleball, but that there's nothing better than strength training to build bone. So even if you are to the point where your bone scans are not looking good, you can reverse that because bone is living tissue. When you add load and strength train, the pull of the muscle on the bone, it will stimulate osteoblasts. Think of these as the construction crew of your skeleton, and they actually lay down new bone tissue. So you're not only building muscle again, you're telling your body to build bone. All right, fat loss and body composition. I'd say most people when they come to the gym, we have a little consultation with them first, go over goals, and it's always, I want to lose fat, or I want to get stronger, or a combination of both. Muscle is the best way to lose fat. And most people, when they want to lose fat, they think of lowering their calories and doing cardio. They're trying to just burn. That's just kind of a recipe for disaster because you have to keep adding more cardio and adding more cardio and adding more cardio because your body adapts to that very quickly. But if you build muscle, you're burning more fat at rest. So yes, an hour on the treadmill or an hour of a high-intensity aerobic session will burn more calories than an hour of strength training. But if you're strength training, you're actually turning your body into, a fat-burning machine. And that's very, very important if you are in a caloric deficit. So if you're on a diet, when you lose weight, some of that's going to be muscle if you're not doing something about it. So, it's the best way to lose fat. And a lot of women say, I want to get toned, and we don't love that word, but tone just means you have muscle and it's showing. All right, perfect segue, because a lot of menopausal or even perimenopausal women, they want to lose fat. I'm postmenopausal, and Felice helped me a lot in that whole journey, but we're going to have hormonal shifts. Us women are complicated beings, and men have it very easy. So those hormonal shifts will accelerate muscle loss, bone loss, you're going to have hot flashes, you're going to have mood swings. And I'm not saying that strength training is going to get rid of all those things, but it can optimize those hormones and make those symptoms a lot less impactful in your daily life. I was still having them, that's what I saw for these, but in conjunction with functional medicine and strength training and exercise, I got through it. And then postmenopausal, sorry. It's essential for, it's essential for bone density, balance. We do, I think a lot of times when people do their own thing, in the gym, they do what we call bilateral movements, so it's 2 legs, 2 arms working together. We do a lot of unilateral steps, so 1 arm, 1 leg, and that really helps for balance. So, and then we're maintaining your independence. All right. GLP-1s and muscle. So for those of you who don't know what a GLP-1 is, it's the weight loss injections that are popular right now. And they're changing lives. We've seen it, with members in our gyms. But what people don't realize is if you're not strength training, it's rapid weight loss. And as I said before, when you lose weight, some of that's going to be muscle. If it's really quickly lost, up to 40% of your weight loss can come from lean muscle mass. So we're big proponents of not just looking at the number on the scale, getting a body fat test, seeing how your clothes fit, taking your measurements, that sort of thing. But without resistance training, you can, when you come off that drug, a lot of times your metabolism is slower because, again, the more muscle you have, the more fat you burn at rest. And I do have a story of, an unfortunate story of someone at our gym who was with us for years, strength trained, and needed to lose some weight for sure, and wasn't doing it on her own. So went on a GLP-1, unfortunately left the gym, came back months later. She was 70 pounds lighter on the scale, but her body fat was higher. So again, it's so important to strength training if you're taking one of those. No shame if you're taking one, but there's definitely some things you can do that. So one day, if you do want to go off of it, your metabolism is working for you. So again, it's not negotiable. All right, so you know what the problem is, you know our prescription. How the heck do we do it? What does strength training do? Yes. First, it's good to know that the media is catching up. We've never heard the strength training message in the past. But here's 3 recent headlines. Women should be strength training. It's the best anti-ager. It's a must to prevent falls. And this is awesome that it's out there. But again, what the heck does it look like? What should you do? All right, real strength training looks like, 1, it takes into account progressive overload. And that's just a fancy way of saying you're progressing over time. So today you're lifting, X amount of weight, say for a round number, 100 pounds. You want to go to 105, 110. You want to progress over time. Or you're lifting 100 pounds for 5 repetitions today, and down the line, you want to be able to do it for 7 repetitions, and so on. So you're tracking your progress, you're getting stronger, you're building muscle. It's planned and structured, it's not random. It's not just a class you pop into, lift some weights, and you do it every once in a while. We design 6-week training phases, all with a particular intent, and one workout builds on the next. So again, you're tracking your progress. There's rest between sets. Now this is a hard one for anyone who has done HIIT classes, high intensity. They don't want to rest between sets. They want to walk on the treadmill, or they have to feel like they're doing something. But that's where the magic happens. You're recovering. You're able to hit your next set with that same intensity, and recovery is essential for muscle growth and strength. There's control technique and an emphasis on form. I think, and you'll see in this next slide, a lot of people just want to get a lot of work done and feel like they did something and soreness is valued. But we want you to get through proper ranges of motion. So if you're squatting, you want to get your hips below your knees in a perfect world. If you're pressing overhead, you want that to be in a straight line. So, if you're not getting into the proper positions or progressing to get into the proper positions, you'll never get there. And getting into those proper ranges of motion actually builds mobility. I think a lot of people think of like stiff bodybuilders when they think of weightlifting, but it actually enhances your mobility. And then just a note that if you're new to this, working with a trainer is key. And it doesn't have to be forever, but this is someone who can watch your technique, progress you, give you modifications so you don't get injured. Because the worst thing you could do is have an improper movement pattern and add a lot of weight to that, and that could just, add to an injury. All right, so this is what strength training does not look like. And I think this is where a lot of the confusion comes in, because every gym has a class that says strength bikes. This isn't anything local. I just grabbed this off of one, the picture of these women, but they're probably moving for the sake of moving. They're trying to get that calorie burn. It's great if they're in a pool of sweat at the end of the workout. It's awesome if they're sore the next day. Just kind of like that. Fatigue is glorified. Many times they're using light weights and they're squeezing as many reps out as possible. So 3, 2, 1, go for a minute. Get as many squats as you can. Because of that, there's usually no regard for form and technique. If you take a look at all of these women, not one of them is squatting correctly. So they're just reinforcing bad movement patterns and kind of wasting their time, to be honest. It looks like cardio with dumbbells. And just because you have weights in your hand does not mean you're strength training. Your body works on signals, and if your heart rate is spiked while you're lifting weights, your body's going to say, okay, we're doing cardio. And it's, you're not resting between sets and all that stuff. So it's a lot slower than people think, and maybe not as exciting at first, but I tell people, getting stronger is fun, Talk to your friend, rest between sets is fun, you can make it fun. All right, at this point, I'm going to bring my husband Rob up to the stage, and he's going to go over something he created, the quality of life circle.
All right, guys, so I'm going to talk about the quality of life circle, but basically what there are is movement patterns. And these are the movement patterns that we use every day in real life. So when we look at this quality of life circle, we call it that because the better you are, at least the stronger you are, the better quality of life you have. So when we look at it, as a squat. It's basically the sit down, standing up. Then you have the hinge, and that's the ability to bend over and then pick something up from the ground. We have the lunge, so that's going backwards, forward, walking upstairs, walking downstairs. You have a pull, so that means you're able to pull yourself on top of something. You have a press, and that means in both of those are horizontal or vertical. And the press just means you're able to either push yourself up or put your dish in. And then a carry, and that's the ability to carry some groceries or whatever it is. So those are 6 fundamental movement patterns that we do in everyday life, and everybody has to do them. And if you start to lose them, then we start to run into issues. So if you take a look, you'll see someone squatting with a kettlebell. It's a goblet squat. But as I'm moving through these, They're the movement patterns. It's not a specific exercise. There's many ways to do it. So we're not married to an exercise. So then you have the squat. Now someone's there getting ready to pick their dog up and just pet it. You have the hinge, and now you see someone bending over to pick something up. You have a lunge, and now someone's walking upstairs. Then also there's a press, someone's putting their luggage up, putting something overhead. You have pull up, someone's pulling themselves up, now they're pulling open a drawer. A carry, then you have the grocery bags, they're carrying. So all these movement patterns are really important, they're the most important. Now you have your dynamic, moving, throwing, rotational, but without having these, those would be real difficult to do. So you want to concentrate on these and get yourself strong with them and with quality of movement. What happens if you start to lose that? So for instance, a squat. Now, I always say with that quality of life circle, if you start to have to regress it too much, then you need assistance. And if it goes too far and you lose too much, then you need someone to assist you. And that happens really quickly as we age. But there is a way to prevent it, and that is working on strength training. And then we have someone in the wheelchair and we know what happens with that. Yeah. So that's basically all she gave me.
I'm just going to go through three quick slides of kind of some case studies, success stories at our gym. I'll get through these really quickly. I know we're kind of going over a little bit. So, all right, first meet May. May's in the front row here. She just turned 71 years young, and she was always active. She was a tennis player. She came to us a couple of years ago, and her bone scans showed that she had osteopenia. So she started strength training with Zach, is up at the front here, 2 days a week. Isn't it 2 days a week? Yep, 2 days a week. She even recruited her husband. You can kind of see behind her in there, Steve. But the point is, the numbers don't make a lot of sense to most people, but her lumbar spine improved by 30% and her hip by 13%. So she went from osteopenia, which is, on your way to osteoporosis if you don't do something about it, to normal bone density. And that was a recent scan. And everybody was like so happy. All right, meet Diane. She would be here tonight, but she's adventuring out in Kentucky, I believe. And she's actually a trainer at our gym. And she's going to be 70 at the end of this year. She's always been strong. She's worked out her entire life, which is super fortunate. But unfortunately, she's had a couple open heart surgeries. She had a genetic disorders. I think the first one was at age 48, 49. And then 7 years ago, so in her early 60s, she had the widowmaker, open heart surgery. So before she went into surgery, she was able to lift 232, she'll kill me if I don't remember that too, at the end, deadlift off the floor. So, barbell is loaded with weights, she safely picks it up from the floor, 232 pounds in her 60s. So she had her open heart surgery, recovered, was cleared to come back to the gym, and she was lifting probably about a third of that weight afterwards, and it was really difficult for her. So the question to ask yourself is, if you're not strong going into something like that, what's that going to look like after? If she was only able to pick up 30 pounds off the ground, which is kind of a heavy Amazon box, was she lifting 10, or does she need assistance from her husband, from nurses, things like that? So the point here is that being strong makes you very resilient. There's so many things in life that we don't account for. We get in a car accident, we fall, whatever, but the stronger you are, the more able you are to recover from those things that life throws at you. And lastly, Chuck, I think a lot of you probably know Chuck Sullivan. He's a lifelong athlete. So people look at him and they're like, oh, it's genetics, and he probably has good genetics, but he has never stopped working out. He really started with endurance, so Ironmans, marathons, things like that in his early 20s and 30s, but then he realized I need strength training. So as he's gotten up in years, he's just turned 71 last month, he's really focused on strength training. And if he would have just stuck with endurance, he would not have the muscle and function that he has now. So excessive cardio pares down muscle, so it eats muscle away. So if you are an endurance athlete, it becomes really, really important to spend a couple days strength training. So now he just qualified for the Spartan Deca World event. His partner is 30 years younger than him, and he's keeping up with her. So it just shows how, really it adds to your vitality as you age. All right, last couple slides. The main word on this slide is prevention. So functional medicine and forward-thinking gyms need to collaborate. So people like Icaria, they help optimize the internal environment. So you're getting regular blood work, maybe you're doing some hormone replacement, peptides. They have lots of different technologies and interventions that you can work with. And we train the hardware. So we teach you how to move correctly. We help you build muscle, which in turn builds resilience. And really, prevention is a daily effort and it's not a pill. And they touched on this too, that, these pillars of sleep, stress reduction, exercise, nutrition are so important. And when you do want to have, get an intervention, whether it be a peptide or whatever, you're going to respond to it so much better if you have those other pillars really just nailed down. Last slide, just a little bit about us and helping people get strong since 2009. We know that gym intimidation is real, but we have a really awesome staff of trainers and members. They see somebody new in the gym, they say hi, they've been there before. We do group sessions, focus first and foremost on strength training, but it's a complete program, so we also do conditioning, and we do quite a bit of personal training, and that's everyone's first step in our gym. Even if you end up going to the groups, you'll start with some personal training. For those of you who don't know us, if you're interested in working with us, we have a little postcard, just shoot us an email and we can get you started. And that's it. Yeah, but just one thought to leave you with. Aging is inevitable, you cannot change it, but living strong is a choice. All right, thank you. We're gonna take some questions, and Zach and Beth, who are both trainers for our gym, they're gonna come and get microphones. If you have a question, they'll come to you, and then we'll hopefully answer.